Jesus won't back down. Take the gates of evil and smash them to the ground. He saves souls from every country and every town. Jesus won't back down, not from any man or any crowd. What's going on, guys? It's your boy Saxon 714 here, bringing you another sermon. As you know, as always, we always donate to a charity on the sermon. So I'm getting everything set up, everything pulled up, everything ready to go. So as you notice, we're doing the sermon. As I said, we always go with what the sermon title is and then the donation. So this sermon is going to be called When Tragedy Strikes. Now, when tragedy strikes, I have seen, as you see this from this horrific car crash, when we go through times in our lives, even non-believers do this. Most Christians do this just normally out of faith, but even non-believers. A child is sick. A loved one's in a serious car accident, as you see here. I do not know these people. This is just a random picture I pulled up. Something happens at your household. Maybe a child, especially children, when children are hurt, or even animals. Some people look at animals as children. That's all they have. So I'm also speaking to the animal lovers out there, which I have a dog. I do not judge. So, but any type of tragedy that happens, I've seen non-believers go and just pray. And the normal prayer you hear from them is, if you're there and you want me to become a believer, if you're there, will you please do this, this, and this? And this happens throughout the Bible. People pray when they need help and then turn around and go right back to the way they were living before and just forget that God and Jesus has ever helped them. And that happens. Kids get sick, they heal, and then for a while they extend and they stay loyal for a year or two, and then all of a sudden, you know what, some things start coming wrong in their personal life. Forget it. But when tragedy strikes, that's when you see the most powerful prayers. When things happen in this country, hurricanes, tornadoes, people bond together. When there's a shooting or something goes on, people pray together. Even non-believers pray, and that's when the strongest faith is. So we're going to look through the Bible and look at these times. But like I said before, always donate to the charity below if you can. Follow me on social media above. But let's get into this. We're going to go ahead. So this week's charity is World Medical Relief, serving the sick and poor locally, nationally, and internationally since 1953. They do a real good job. Their website, I got it pulled up over here on the screen, is www.worldmedicalrelief.org. It will be in the description below. So if you guys want to donate and go there and donate and help these people out, go across the world and heal all those that are sick. Everybody deserves some medical relief. So let's go out, and I hope you guys donate. Okay, let's go and start into this sermon. Now, into this sermon, we're going to start off pretty late into the Old. As you know, we always go Old Testament, New Testament. I forgot to put the Old Testament picture up, but we're starting in the Old Testament. We always do. This is Egypt. This is when the Israelites became captive in Egypt, and you'll see in Exodus 1, 8 through 14. Now there arose a new king over Egypt who did not know Joseph. Joseph was the one who was captured, taken to Egypt. He was sold there by his brothers. He actually wasn't captured. His brothers left him there because he was seeing visions of them. He was seeing that he was going to be over top of them in stature and being looked up to. And they didn't like that. They didn't like that he seen the visions. So they had him there. They were going to kill him, but they didn't want to do that. So they sold him to bondsmen, and he went to Egypt. So this is where we're at now. Now there arose a new king over Egypt who did not know Joseph. Joseph was a great prophet, and he said to his people, Look, the people, the children of Israel, are more and mightier than we. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, lest they multiply. And it happened, in the event of war, that they also join our enemies and fight against us, and so go up out of the land. Therefore they sent taskmasters over them to afflict them with their burdens, and they built for the Pharaoh's supply cities, Pithom and Rameses. If I'm saying it right. If I'm saying it wrong, I apologize. But the more they afflicted him, the more they multiplied and grew, and they were in dread of the children of Israel. So the Egyptians made the children of Israel serve with rigor, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage and mortar and brick, and in all manner of service in the field. All their service in which they made them serve was with rigor. They were scared. These people are going to get too powerful. They're going to go and join our enemies because they don't like us. We've made them slaves, and then they're going to fight against us. So the people of Israel, as you know the story of Moses, comes out and they are praying to God. They want this. They want this to end. They want this to go away. So, and now it speaks here in Exodus 2 and 23. Now it happened in the process of the time that the king of Egypt died. Then the children of Israel groaned because of their bondage, and they cried out, and their cry came up to God because of the bondage. So God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And God looked upon the children of Israel, and God acknowledged them. So Moses, we all know the story. The plagues came, everything happened. God answered them. God set them free. They prayed at their time that they needed him. When tragedy was close, they were sick of the bondage. So Moses sets them free. They go out in the wilderness. We're skipping ahead a little bit. They go out in the wilderness. They've been walking in the wilderness of sin. So God calls Moses up on Mount Sinai to write the tablets, to give him the 10 Commandments, which we still see in all the buildings and all the stuff today. He gives him the commandments. So he's up there an awfully long time. God has helped them throughout this, as you've seen in other sermons that I've done. It wasn't easy out in the wilderness of sin, but God has always been there for them. God has always gave to them in the wilderness, helped them. And they moaned and groaned and complained, even though they were just begging begging God for help while they were in captive there in Egypt. So, but as I said, Moses is up on Mount Sinai. He's been up there a long time, and the people are starting to get worried. They're like, what happened to Moses? Where's this guy at? And like I said, you read all this in Exodus 23:25. There, Exodus 32:4 and 9 through 10. They go to Aaron and say, "Listen, this guy's not coming back." So, the God that saved us is now taking Moses, and who knows what he's done with him. Is this going to happen to us? So, if this God and Moses has left us, because they thought they just got up and left. I think in the mind state, I could be wrong, but to me it seems like in their mind state, they thought they were left behind, like they're gone. They're not coming back. So they asked Aaron, "Give us a God. We need gods to follow, and gods that set us out of the land. We need gods. We want to see who let us out. Moses is gone. We need something else." So Aaron, of course, appeases to the people, and you read here in 4, and he received the gold from their hand, and he fashioned it with an engraving tool and made a molten calf. Then they said, "This is your God, O Israel, that brought you out of the land of Egypt." A calf. That's the best they could come up with. I'm actually, as you read later on with Baal and all the other ones, they come up with a cow to worship. But so they made this calf, and not knowing that Moses and the Lord can see this, they throw a big feast to this calf. They set it up on a pedestal, they party, they drink, they play music, and they're celebrating this calf and this new God that's supposedly led them out of Egypt, which people do that now. It's no different. Their child gets better. The one time that they pray a year, or the one time that a non-believer goes and prays and their child gets better, and then a doctor comes in and tells them, "Hey, I did this, I helped," and then their friends ask, "Well, oh, it's great, I see your kid's okay, oh yes, this doctor did it. This doctor saved his life by himself. It wasn't for this doctor, this kid would never ever have been alive, or this kid would never have healed." Or the paramedics did this. The paramedics, if it wasn't for them, this man, my grandfather, or the veterinarian, my dog, would not be alive today. Well, what about the 5 or 10 minutes ago when you prayed to God? The one little breath that you prayed to God and looked up and asked for, just in your heart. Didn't you have to mumble anything, just in your heart. You looked in your heart and said, please do something. What happened to that? You forgot quickly, that quickly, within a span of a day, a span of a couple of hours that this happened. So let's see how the Lord reacts. I mean, that's the same way that these people were for, I see these people being from, that happened that did this molten calf. So let's see, and yes, I move my hands a lot if you can tell, it's just how I talk. But let's see how God answers this. And the Lord said to Moses, I have seen these people, and indeed it is a stiff-necked people. Now therefore let me alone, that my wrath may burn hot against them, and that I may consume them, and I will make of you a great nation. Moses could have done this. Moses could have let this happen. I didn't put it up there. I don't think I had it on there. I don't think I copied and pasted on there. But if you read on, Moses actually asked God, please do not do this to these people. Let me go reason with them. Because Moses was very smart and knowledgeable and very, very wise. And he asked God, he said, because if you kill all these people, after you just freed them from Egypt, the other nations around are going to say, look, their God freed them from Egypt when they were slaves, took them out into the wilderness and killed all of them anyway. So Moses reasoned with God for the sake of letting God's blessing know, letting the other countries know that this is the true God. He will save you no matter what. So I think we should do the same as people. Even if you're a non-believer, even if you prayed for that 5 minutes, at least take the time knowledge when somebody say, hey, your family member, they're doing good. Yeah, I did a little praying and it helped. I mean, I know it's hard to say for some people. For most Christians, it's not. Most Christians, yeah, thank God. And you will hear that a lot, even out of non-Christians. When a family member recovers, you will hear, thank God. At least sometimes. Or you'll hear, thank the doctor or thank somebody else. But about 86% of the time, they'll say, thank God. And then they'll say, well, I thought you didn't believe in God. And then they got to backpedal. Well, just for this minute, I'm talking about the doctor. They try to hide that. To show, to make sure to try to hide that there is no God, to try to protect themselves for the 1 minute that they maybe have thought or try to please somebody. But then again, let's get back into this. The book of Judges is great for this. If you want to read where people follow the Lord, not follow the Lord, follow the Lord, not follow the Lord, follow the Lord, not follow the Lord, go to Judges. Read the book of Judges, because that is all, just about all Judges is. So in this we're reading this again. The people served the Lord. The Lord helped them. Then they went away from the Lord and served other gods, Baal and a couple other gods. And then it starts up again. This goes through the whole book, as I said. So we're starting here with Ehud. Ehud, that's how I say it. Like I said, I hope I'm pronouncing it right. And we'll start here in Judges 3 and 12. And the children of Israel again did evil in the sight of the Lord. So the Lord strengthened Eglon, king of Moab, against Israel because they had done evil in the sight of the Lord. The verse before this, see, this is why I just picked certain verses and certain, because if I did this, I'd have the whole book of Judges in here, and we'd be reading the book of Judges, and you guys don't want that. This just happened. 11 just happened again, where they were saved from God because they asked God to please help them, and then they went back to this. So it's just a reoccurring thing. So then in 14, so the children of Israel served Eglon, king of Moab, 18 years. But when the children of Israel cried out to the Lord raised up a deliverer for them, Ehud, the son of Zerah, the Benjamite, a left-handed man. By him the children of Israel sent tribute to Eglon, king of Moab. When the children of Israel cried out to the Lord. This is the same thing they did in Egypt. This is the same thing they did when they come over to the promised land. After the wilderness, this is just right after the wilderness, I think it is. Just right after the wilderness, the 40 years. they're going back to the same process. They went away from God, now they're back to God, as I said. So, again, in 20, so Ehud came to him. Now he was sitting upstairs in his cool private chamber. Then Ehud said, I have a message from God for you. So he arose from his seat, and he tells him, go away. Go away. Go away. And then he says he has a secret for him, which you'll read. Then Ehud reached with his left hand, took the dagger from his right thigh, and thrust it into his belly. And it happened when he arrived that he blew the trumpet in the mountains of Ephraim, and the children of Israel went down with him from the mountains, and he led them. Then he said to them, follow me, for the Lord has delivered your enemies, the Moabites, into your hands. So they went down after him, seized the fords of the Jordan leading to the Moab, and did not allow anyone to cross over. So Moab was subdued that day under the hand of Israel, and the land had rest for 8 years. So for 8 years they followed the Lord. For 80 years they followed the Lord. And then look what happens. This is just great. Like I said, we'd read this whole book. The very next verse in Judges 4:1, when Ehud was dead, the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord. How quick people forget. How quick that they forget that this happened. It's amazing. You read this book, this happens a lot more in the Old Testament than the New. And it happens, and you see it a lot today. Anytime, like I said, there's a mass shooting, people around the world pray. There's evil. Not going to get into political beliefs. Of my political beliefs, that's not what this is about. This is about the sermon. This is about God. For that brief moment, everybody feels bad. Everybody prays for the victims, just as like the last shooting we just had. It's very sad. Those that were killed. My thoughts and prayers with their family. I'm going to say that and get that out of there. But everybody comes together, and for that brief moment they pray. And then, as you see in a couple years, people forget about it. Now everybody's just back to their old ways, and that one moment of prayer is now gone. And they go away, and then something else happens, which you read all through Judges, and then they have to pray again. It's just a continuing cycle. So this is more of a message to the non-believers. Just once you pray, go to your local church, go hear the good word, and just go and just continue to pray. Continue to feel what it's like to have the Lord with you. But we're going to keep going. I don't want to get too off topic here. We're going to start into the New Testament. Like I said, I could have went through the whole book of Judges. I didn't want to do that because for time's sake. So we're going to get in the New Testament. The New Testament, as everybody knows, the New Testament's basically the life of Jesus. Jesus had this for the most part, but not as much, where he would save somebody and then they would turn away from him and then he would save them again. Jesus didn't have that so much. What Jesus had so much of, from what I read, and I could be wrong, is that Jesus healed somebody and then you kind of hear like he healed the lame walk and then they walk away. You never really hear of what happened to them. Did they go out and preach the word? Did they go out and tell the story? Did they rebuke him? Did they change their mind? Did they sin again? You don't really read that too much in the New Testament, but there are some examples of where this happens, and there are some, especially with the disciples in this first one, there are some examples of this happening. So this is Jesus sending them in the boat after he goes up and prays alone. It says it's in Matthew 14:22. As you can read at the bottom, that's where all the scriptures can be found in the Bible. If you want to go and see that I preach straight from the Bible, that's why I put them there, so you know I try to go word for word. So Matthew 14:22 through 31, skipping a couple verses. Immediately Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side, while he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. Now when the evening came, he was alone there. But the boat was now in the middle of the sea, tossed by the waves, for the wind was contrary. So he said, "Come." And when Peter had come out of the boat, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw that the wind was boisterous, he was afraid and began to sink, crying out, saying, "Lord, save me." And immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him and said to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" It's kind of, people will say, well, that's not the same thing as what you're talking about earlier, but I kind of get the sense of it is. Because Peter had been with Jesus and seen all the great things he's done. Has seen him heal the sick, has seen him do things and perform miracles. So again, for that one brief second, he tells Peter to walk out on the boat and to try to prove faith. You can preach this along with faith too. And when he walked out, he was scared. He did not believe that, he thought Jesus would lie to him. He thought in a minute that if I walk out here, I can't trust this man. And then he starts to sink and he says, "Lord, save me." So in that 1 minute, he has to ask the Lord to save me. He didn't even have enough faith to know that Jesus would save him. And that's why he says, "Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt?" Like I said, you could teach us with faith, but I teach us as much of a tragedy. He could have sank. He could have died. To him, this was a tragedy. Anybody drowning, or those that you see videos of Drifted with Sea, all they do is say, "I just looked up and prayed and hoped that somebody come." And then they get rescued. And in this sense, I take it as that's the way I see it with Peter. He's sinking. He's scared he's going to die. So he says, "Please save me." The Lord saves him. Now see, this is kind of different though. I do see it in that sense because Peter never goes back. Peter's his disciple. But, so I mean, he follows him all through the Bible. So I mean, it's kind of different, but I still like it to use it in this sense because of that reason. So the next one we're going to go to is, this is the man, this is how this should be. This is a man that was blind. He was healed. The Pharisees didn't believe he was blind, brought him in, basically put him under a court, jury, and jurisdiction to ask him if he was blind, and he stuck to his faith, just like many of us and many of the non-believers and some of the Christians do not do. They do not stick to the faith and say, "This is because of God. God did this. This man did this for Jesus," and I'm using this as an example of how we should be. So let's go ahead and read this because we're running short on time. John 9:1-4 and 4-11. "Now as Jesus passed by, he saw a man who was blind from birth. And then Jesus says to the disciples, 'I must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. The night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world.' When he had said these things, he spat on the ground and made clay with the saliva, and he anointed the eyes of the blind man with the clay. He said to him, Go wash in the pool of Siloam," which is translated sent. I normally cut that stuff out. I just must have forgot to. "So he went and washed and came back seeing. Therefore the neighbors and those who previously had seen that he was blind said, Is not this he who had sat and begged?" Some said, "This is he." Others said, "He is like him." He said, "I am he." Therefore they said to him, "How were your eyes opened?" He answered and said, "A man called Jesus made clay and anointed my eyes and said to me, 'Go to the pool of Siloam and wash.' So I went and washed, and I received my sight." Again, you can preach this with faith. I preach this. I will probably use this again for faith. But then again, I'm going to use it for this. This man was born blind. It was a tragedy to him. He wanted to see. It shows the power of Jesus. Jesus can heal anything and help anybody. That it is his decision whether you live, whether you die. So, that's not to say we should hate him when we die, which we're going to go into a whole nother sermon of that. So I'm going to save that for another sermon. And then this is when they brought him up. This is when they put him under basically a court. In John 9:13-20-25, they brought him who was formerly blind to the Pharisees. Now it was a Sabbath when Jesus made the clay and opened his eyes. Then the Pharisees also asked him again how he had received his sight. He said to them, He put clay on my eyes, and I washed, and I see. Pretty plain and simple. Therefore some of the Pharisees said, This man is not from God, because he does not keep the Sabbath. Others said, How can a man who is a sinner do such signs? And there was a division among them. They said to the blind man again, What did you say about him because he opened your eyes? This guy says he is a prophet. But the Jews did not believe concerning him that he had been blind and received his sight until they called the parents of him who had received his sight. So they're telling this guy, you're a liar. You could always see. You were pretending to be blind. You were just sitting there pretending to be a beggar. This dude did not heal you. You're going to find out what they say here about him. I think I put it in there. If not, I'll tell you. They basically said, you're a disciple and this is all a hoax. But they asked his parents. They said, we'll ask your parents. The parents aren't going to lie, because if they lie and they get caught lying, they will be put to death. So, and they asked his parents, and they asked them, saying, Is this your son, who you say was born blind? How then does he now see? His parents answered them and said, We know that this is our son, and that he was born blind. He answered and said, Whether he is a sinner or not, and this is in Matthew 25, we skipped ahead, because all his parents keep saying is, He's at the age, he's a grown adult, let him answer for why he can see. Because they don't want to get killed. They were scared because the Pharisees hated Jesus and hated anybody who followed him. So, they lied. They basically said, let him answer for himself out of fear, because they were not there for one. They couldn't attest to it. So they were telling the truth, and he's the only one that can. And then in 25, he answered and said, Whether he is a sinner or not, I do not know. One thing I know, that I thought I was blind, and now I see. Well, that's basically the end of this. We basically run it into 30 minutes. We're at like 27 minutes. I'm looking down on my counter. So, like I said, in the New Testament, there ain't so much. In the Old Testament, the whole book of Judges, you could go through and see this. But let this lesson come out and just be a reminder. When tragedy strikes, as I said before, any type of tragedy, and you go and you pray for that single most second, and you get the blessing you ask for. You get the loved one that's sick, or the loved animal heals off a deathly disease, or you survive a severe accident, and that for that close couple of moments before you closed your eyes, before you went under surgery or had heart problems and went under, and you prayed and said, please let this work out, and it worked out. All this lesson is to remind you, please do not forget to tell others that God helped you. Don't be ashamed to say, God helped me. Jesus helped me. I prayed and it worked. Because it can help so many other people. And as you've seen from those who go away and come back and go away and come back, a lot of them in the Old Testament, they were punished. Probably more severe before, when they believed. The first time they didn't believe. The more they don't believe, the more severe the punishment, the more severe the ruler came. So, thank you all so much for watching the video. I hope, like I said, I hope this all clicks in. But like I said, please donate to the charity below. I'm going to say it again so I don't forget. www.worldmedicalrelief.org. Please donate to the charity. And coming up Wednesday, I'll have a video. I seen a couple requests, Super Mario Brothers World, and then Final Fantasy. I might try the Final Fantasy thing. I haven't done it yet, so I'm probably going to try it. So, without that, I'm going to go ahead and let everybody go. Please have a safe day. Remember to follow me on the social media accounts above, and I will see you guys on Wednesday.